But everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing it.
The Tampa market. Starting to rise.
In Northeast Africa, precisely on the Horn of Africa.
The local farmers.
Hey, all right, folks, how you guys doing? Welcome back this morning. Sorry, I'm still thinking it's Friday. Welcome back this morning. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Sunday class. Once again, I'm your host. This is the Revolutionary Perpetuation Educational Lecture Series of David CC every Sunday at 1 p.m. So, as you come on, please share the live and also hit the like button, hit the red button, and ask others to also follow us to subscribe to the channel as well. So today's topic, it says U.S. private terrorist military, U.S. private terrorist military, and also U.S. embassy in Liberia apologized to Liberia for undermining its democracy. The United States Embassy in Liberia apologized to the Liberian government and to the Liberian people for undermining its government. But again, the issue here is, how did we get to that place for the U.S. to apologize to Liberia? All right. It was not because Liberian kept silent. It was because Liberian kept pushing and kept pointing, America biases, okay, into African affairs, into African nations, all right, into African political and governing affairs. So we also put pressure on the United States, and the U.S. came out to apologize. Now, the reason why I thought it was to bring back the story is because once upon a time, in the same year, it was the same United States Treasury that sanctioned 3 government officials, right? Now, the United States Embassy have come out to say they did the wrong thing by sanctioning those government officials, because the United States was mingling into the affair of Liberia. Okay? Now, we all know this. If you see America or UK or the West against your government, that means your government is doing the right thing. Your government is on the right track. It might be difficult, it may not be easy as it's supposed to be, but it means your government is not a puppet government. It means the United States or Europe, they are working with opposition to go against that government, and that is what exactly happened under the presidency of George Manneh Weah of Liberia at the initial stage. America, in some area, did not like how that government was going, because America was not fully getting her will. So she was working with opposition, and opposition giving her information, and she relied on that and censured the 3 government officials. And after we spoke about it numerous times on various platforms, meaningful Liberian, not an ungrateful Liberian, because there are some ungrateful Liberian. There are some Liberians who are still slaves. There are some Liberians who still want to be slave to their slave master. There are some Liberians who still see America as their slave master. Some ungrateful Liberian. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about a meaningful Liberian who refuse to be slave, and who refuse to be slave and to look at America as a slave master. Those Liberians came out and put America in a place. And that's how today the American embassy could not find it easy to penetrate the system. And it came out to apologize. Oh yes, there are some Liberians who are still slaves in our country. And there are some Liberians who are in America here are still slaves. They prefer being slave. They prefer being horse Negro instead of field Negro. They prefer to be horse Negro. Yes, some Liberian. There are plenty. There are many. They are still slaves. Worshipping America. Worshipping the white men. Some Liberian. There are many in Liberia, and they are also in America. They refuse to get free, to be free. They refuse to be free Negro, but they want to be horse Negro, and they are still slave. Those are the Liberians we're talking about. Slave. Let's see here. Before I continue with what we are here for, let me show a short video. Then we can get started. Today, I think we are not going to take long, actually, because we don't really have much to talk about, and it's very short. Welcome, Lee. Peace, family. Welcome, peace. All right, let me play a short video, and then we can go ahead, because I am ready today to blast at the slave, the Liberian slave. We still have Liberians who are still slaves. I'm ready for them today.
In their own territories and within their own communities so that they can govern themselves.
That's the policy that aggressors use.
You know who are the aggressors? It's the African National Congress in Africa. They are the aggressors. If the Africans in Africa would stop being so militant and would rather get down and help and build up South Africa and build up Africa, the problem would cease almost immediately.
Okay, let me ask you this thing. How can they help if you get 9 million Africans and 3 million Europeans, and you get only 9 Europeans representing the interests of these Africans? I mean, how can 9 Englishmen or 9 Europeans represent 9 million Africans? How can they know their problems and their ideas? Everybody knows that Africa is for Africans. And when we think of Africans, we think of blacks. I know that in South Africa, you have a government, and there is not a single African in the government.
Now, the government's policy of apartheid, that policy, the guiding principle of this policy is to help the non-whites in South Africa to self-realization in their own territories and within their own communities so that they can govern themselves.
That's the policy that aggressors use.
You know who are the aggressors? It's the African National Congress in Africa. They are the aggressors. If the Africans in Africa would stop being so militant and would rather get down and help and build up South Africa and build up Africa, the problem would cease almost immediately.
Okay, let me ask you this thing. How can they help if you get 9 million Africans and 3 million Europeans, and you get only 9 Europeans representing the interests of these Africans? I mean, how can 9 Englishmen or 9 Europeans represent 9 million Africans? How can they know their problems and their ideas? Everybody knows that Africa is for Africans. And when we think of Africans, we think of blacks.
All right, I'm going to start with that video, right? And that video going to be my premise that I'm going to reference to as well. But before I can get into it, right, let me just say something here. And the reason why I brought that short video is because of what Joe Biden said from previous discussion that we had, right? What he said about creating an industrial policy, all right? Because America have seen how things are being played on a global stage right now as we speak. America have seen how Africa or Africans are standing firm. America have seen how Africans are refusing to be slaves. America have seen how Africans are refusing to be bourgeoisie. All right? America have seen how Africans are refusing to be puppets. America have seen how Africans are refusing to be obedient to their master. Okay? They have seen it. So Joe Biden said, They want to create an industrial policy. Now, if you listen to the video I just watched, we just watched, what did that young white fellow say? He said, when the young guy or black guy asked him, okay, how fair can it be that when black people are asking for their freedom, their liberation, okay, how can we be the bad ones, as I'll paraphrase it? How can we be the one that are making violence? And what did the white guy say? This government, he was talking about South Africa now, this government have a policy. And that policy is to find solution for black people. That policy is to find solution for African people. That policy is to tell African people, this is how you need to be. This is how you need to be liberated. This is how you need to be free. Not how you want to be free or not how you want to be liberated. That is exactly what Joe Biden was saying. They want to create an industrial policy. That's the kind of policy. And that's the kind of policy that little white boy was talking during apartheid time when South African was fighting for freedom. He was telling him, no, you don't have to create policy. We have a policy. And the boy was telling him, how can, for example, 5 people control 20 people? How will you understand our situation, our struggle? That is the same thing. That is the same thing exactly happening with this current time, where America and Europe does not want to listen to African. They don't want to. They don't want to listen to African because it is not in their favor. They see it as not in their favor, because if they listen to us, that means we will be making decisions for ourselves. But the issue here is they do not want us to make decisions for ourselves. They want to make decisions for us, identify things for us, how we need to live, and what we need to do and what we need not to do. You see, that is a slave mentality. But I will use that as my premise before, as we continue to go, especially when we get to the Liberia situation. Because we still have slaves. We have many Liberians who are slaves. And we don't care to tell them in their faces how slave they are. If they want to be slave, they should come to America, but not in Liberia. Liberia will not have slaves. No more. Let's continue to the first part. Let's get to the American Private Army. Now, folks, you see, anything that America have done and see it as a pleasure and see it as a way to oppress other people and see it as a way to look down on other people, to kneel down on other people, to oppress and suppress other people, right? They see it as a way of, like a habit. But when other nations do it, or when other people do it, they see it as bad. They see it as against human rights. And they put all kind of terms, how they call it, words or terms to describe you. But when they were doing it, it was never against human. It was never against human rights. But as long as America and Europe, the colonizer, the enslaver, the imperialists, as long they are not benefiting from it, as long they are not a benefactor, it's against human rights. But as long they are the one benefiting, it's not against human rights. Now, America do have private army, which of course America have used to destabilize other nations, to invade other nations, and they said they want for special military operation. So why it is when other nations have private army, they have become a threat to America. Then America see it as against human rights. America see it as a problem. Now, this is not to say we are speaking or I'm speaking against America private military. They have the money, they have the power, they can do it. And that's the same thing we African want. Now, the difference with the African continent and African people is this. We are not going to have private army to be going to other people's country to destabilize other nations and to loot and steal their resources and to kill innocent people. That will not be done. Unlike America, who use her private army to destabilize other nations and to kill innocent civilians, innocent people. That's not the kind of power black people are looking for. We don't care to go to other people's nation to steal their resources. Black people have abundant resources. African people have abundant resources. All we need is to realize that we have it. All we need is to realize that we need to be united. That's the only thing that's holding us from moving forward. But other than that, we are not speaking for other people private military and speaking against American military. We are just giving out the hypocrisy of the United States. That is not to say we are speaking for the Russian private military. No. The same crime America is saying Russia have done with our private military, America have done worse to us with our private military than what Russia have done, than what she portrayed as Russia have done with our private military. America worse than those people. So if you have done worse than those people and you describe them as violating human rights and you want them to the ICC, how about you? Because you have done the worst. Now, let's get into it. First of all, let's see who these people are, American private military, because they are the one also in Africa right now. They call it AFRICOM. It is not a Marine. Yeah, they use the American uniform as the Marine. They use the American Army uniform as the Army. But these are the people in Africa, the Black Water. They are the one in Africa. They are the one America sent in Africa. They are also private military. Then, what is the difference between Russia having a private military in Africa and America having a private military in Africa? What is the difference? I think the difference here is the Russian private military, at least if we are to say something good about them, they are on the side of African army and fighting the jihadi. They are on the side of African army and fighting the terrorists. At least for now, we have not seen them giving army ammunition to the terrorists. But at least we have seen, especially the French military were caught by the Chadian military, while the French military were taking army ammunition to Sudan when they got caught. At least the American private military are on the African continent, as they said, and they are not living by their word. They told African leaders they want to bring their army to help Africans fight the terrorists. But since the introduction of terrorism on the African continent, we have not seen one American army on the battlefield fighting alongside with Africans. Why are you there? So if we are to give praises to private military on the African continent, why now we can't give it to the Russian or the Wagner group? Because they are the one alongside with African army. They are the one alongside fighting with the Malian army, fighting against terrorism. At least the Russian government has given helicopter, army ammunition or equipment to fight the terrorists. One nation in Africa that the American government have given army ammunition, helicopter, ammo, that the way they have proliferated army ammunition in Ukraine. And recently, they have just passed another law, 345 million worth of ammunition, arms supply to Taiwan. But here is the African continent. When you have your military there, you are not fighting. You are not sending 345 million worth of ammunition to African government, to African military to fight the terrorists. But the other side, your army are the one supplying ammunition to the terrorists. Let's continue here. Let's see who the American private military are. Now, first of all, let's see who these people are, okay? How did they come to be? How did they exist, right? Let's see who they are. And let's see how America, Washington, D.C. is using these people to destabilize other continents, to destabilize other nations, to steal the resources. See what happened here. So Russia is not the only one having private military. Now, private military company, Blackwater. Now, Blackwater legal and ethical issue are widely known, but how did they get to where they were in the first place? And how did they fare on the aftermath? Now, the beginning. Blackwater USS began in 1997 by R. Clark Eric Prince. They started out as a private security firm providing training support to law enforcement, providing training support to law enforcement, providing training support to law enforcement. For example, it could be the police, it could be the Marine, it could be the Army. Let's continue here. The Justice Department. So look here now, they're providing all these things to the Justice Department and military organization and receive their first contract. Receive their first contract from the United States government, from Washington, D.C., from Congress in 2000 after the bombing of the USS Cole. Private military. America using private military to destroy other places, right? So they got their first contract in 2000 after they went on and bombed the USS Cole, right? Good. But other nations do it, other people do it, is bad. That is not to say we are defending other people. But gentlemen, folks, we need peace everywhere. If America loves peace, other nations love peace. If America loves life, other nations love life, other culture love life, other people love life, other races or race love life. Leave them alone. You want to do business? Go in peace. Go in peace. Do not carry your imperialist attitude, your oppressive attitude. If you can't get it in peace, you get it by force. And you never go there by peace. You never go with peace. You never go with negotiation. You never go to listening. And this is where your empire will fail. Because nations are fed up. Let's continue here. In 1998, the private security firm bought a training facility on a dark swamp in North Carolina and officially adopted their name, which was inspired by the mercury water surrounding the training facility. The 6,000-acre of training facility contained indoor, outdoor, and urban reproduction shooting range, an artificial lake, and a driving track. Now, again, they are not going to like me for this scenario, but I'm going to say it. The only reason why these people succeeded because they were white. The only reason why these people succeeded and got support from Congress, from the United States government, because they were white. At the end of the day, white will stand for white. White will support white. There have been numerous black militants. Why have they not been supported? Why they have now been supported by the same Congress, by the same United States government? There have been numerous black militants who have been struggling, who have formed themselves, who are grouped to protect themselves, right? But still, they run propaganda against them to destroy them. Why is that so? Because of power. They do not want to give power to the black men. They do not want to give protection to the black men. If they are giving protection to the black men, it should be protection that will come from them, not protection that will come from the black men. Because if protection comes from the black man will clearly 100% protect his or herself and her people and his people. But see how this group came into being, and see how this group was being supported by the same government. The same government that go against black militant. I said it, and that's the truth. Now, government, let's see here. During the war in Iraq, so you see, I'm not going to say Marine were not there, they were Marine, but these people were mostly the private army that used Marine uniform. But again, they throw people out because these were American taxpayer money. So the government is not going to come out to tell American taxpayer that, oh, we're using private military. So they were paying American taxpayer money to pay private military to go into another country to loot their resources, their oil, and destabilize the place and take down government that is not in their favor. But let's continue here. During the war in Iraq, Blackwater was one of several private security. And by the way, we're going to see them. So it is not only Blackwater. America has a lot of private security that she uses overseas. During the war in Iraq, Blackwater was one of the several private security companies used to guard, official, security guard, and military installation, train the Iraqi army and police forces. That's the same thing they're doing to the African continent. They say they are there training. In fact, by the way, these are just things they put in here, but that does not mean they did it. These are just writing they put in here to make them look good, to sell themselves, to portray themselves to the world stage that they were doing good thing. They are doing good thing when they come to your country. Because these are things they put here so that when they go to other people's country and they use these things, they say, look, you see the website here? These are the private military and these are the things we've been doing in so places. But what did they do in Iraq? Did they succeed? What did they do in Yemen? Did they succeed? In Baghdad? Did they succeed? Even on the African continent, have they had any success on the African continent? These are all charade. Let's continue. The first contract in Iraq was in the summer of 2003 when they secured a 21 million contract for a personal security detachment and 2 helicopters for the head of U.S. occupation in Iraq. Now you see, it was not Marine, it was not Army. These were private security. And then, now I don't blame American. They will say that, our military died for us. They sacrificed their life for us. No, these people use your taxpayer money and then they pay private military and then to go in other country to kill people. And you sit there and celebrate and say these people are fighting for us. They pay up your taxpayer money to give it to private military to go to other nations to kill and loot and rape people. And you sit there and celebrate and say they are fighting for you, while they are making their bank's account rich, and you are still fighting getting 2, 3 jobs, 4 jobs to make ends meet. You are still being homeless. And you say these people are fighting for you. They are fighting for you by destabilizing other culture, destroying other society, killing innocent people and raping them. And you say they are fighting for you when they are taking your taxpayer money, giving it to private military. Every year you sit and you say, God bless our military. If God can bless a military, private military, that they are using taxpayer money and they go and kill, how about the victims? How about the victim? What will God do for the victims? If he can say, God bless our military, they are fighting for all, they are doing this. What will God do to the victims? The women that are being raped, the children that are being killed, the men that are being killed. What will God say about them? If God can bless the people that are killing them, then what will God do to the people that are victims? Oh no, we got to say these things. I know it don't sound right in some people's ear, but it's the truth. The millions of people that are being dead. Let's continue here. So you see, these are all private army the U.S. uses overseas to control other places, to get hold of other places, to control and loot people's resources. What happened in Libya? We are all private army. And you say that, you say our military are fighting for us. So Libya were in war with America. If you every year you come and say, thank God for our military, our veteran. So your veteran that went in Libya to destroy Libya, to kill Gaddafi and his children, they were fighting for American. How about the victim today? Look at Libya today. Your government said they want to give democracy to the people of Libya, but look at Libya today. Ask their government, where is the democracy in Libya? Before next year or before this year and say, God bless our military, God bless our veteran. Ask yourself, where is the democracy for the people of Libya? Ask Obama. Ask Obama, ask Clinton. Where is the democracy? Ask them, where is the good life they promised the people of Libya? Because they sent a private military there. It wasn't the army that you pray for every time. God bless our veteran. They were private army. And they're the one in Africa right now. It's like saying, God bless the people that oppress my forefather. That is why exactly it means. Let's continue here. In 2004, they were one of 3 private military companies brought in for protective services in Iraq. Now you see it. So all the army you saw in Iraq, you thought our Marine, you thought our army. No, these are people that were already paid with your taxpayer money to go and loot the people's resources so that people like Obama then, Joe Biden can have their bank account fought while you still be homeless and continue to pray for them. So in 2004, the Blackwater were one of the 3 private military companies that were taken to Iraq, Afghanistan. So you see it. So the army that were taken to Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, and Asia, they were all private military. Now, this contract brought in $488 million back to the United States. Now you see it, how it is a business making things. Now let me read it. In 2004, they were one of 3 private military companies brought in for protective services in Iraq. Now, protective services, you know what I mean? They were there to protect, to secure where the oil was, where they had the oil, where they had the resources. They were not there. That's why they said protective services. They were not there to protect the Iraqi or the Afghans. They were not there to protect those people. They were not there to protect life. And we're going to see some of them in videos. They were there to protect strategic areas of resources of their interest. In that year, the contract brought in $488 million interest. Let's continue here. They continue to do work for the government, the United States government, back home in the U.S. At the same time, now you understand, at the same time they were working back home, right? They continue to do work back home for the U.S. Two, specifically during the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So now again, here's another thing you want to get. I know during that time you saw army people around with a uniform, right? They were not the army you know or the Marine you know. They were private security, private army. And these people, they are not law abiding according to the United States Constitution of what they need to do as Marine, as army. They are private army, they have their own law, they have their own constitution. They can do anything. They don't care. They are not under the American government. American government pay them. In fact, they sent in a rescue team and a helicopter free of charge to help with relief efforts. During this time, they also moved employees who were already on a federal contract. You see it? Who were already on a federal contract into the area to protect government building and charge the government $240,000 daily. $240,000 daily during hurricane. You see it? $240,000 every day. The time they spend, if they spend 1 month, every day $240,000 of taxpayer money were going to them. So do you see that? So you see, they are there right here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but now at least you know who these people are. And then even up to 2007, right? Now, on September 16, 2007, in Nasser Square, Baghdad, a group of Blackwater contractors tasked with guarding State Department employees. So now, another services. They say services, right? Now, if they go into your country and they invade your country, they destabilize your country, they also have experts, U.S. workers who are experts, who are there to loot the oil, the resources, the diamond, and those things. Now, these army are there to protect the workers. That's what they're trying to say here, right? But that a group of Blackwater contractors tasked with guarding State Department employees. So let's see here. So you see it, right? And now, so what these people did, look right here. Employees opened fire on small car driven by a couple with their children in tow. Employees claim they were attacked first, while other witnesses says that the contractor opened fire because the car would not get out of the way of the convoy. So now you see, they in other people's country, they have the freedom than the people. According to them, they shot at the car because the car could not get off their way. And it killed those innocent people. Now, we brought this, all right. Let's see more history about the Blackwater, the kind of thing they do for the American government. So, America need to go to the RCC. Now, these are the things America do. These are the things the superpower do, that they do not want to be part of the RCC because of their dirty hands. But they are not part of the RCC. They want to control the RCC by telling other nations, tell our country who do not agree to be puppet. They bring them to the RCC. And then they are the judge to the RCC. You are not part of the RCC, but you are the judge at the RCC. Now, let's see who these people are into further explanation. So let's see some of the things that they have done overseas. Let's see some of the things that they have done overseas. So let's see who these people are. I mean, we're not really going to say much today, but let's see who these people are, okay?
The year is 2007. The setting is Iraq, a country fresh from war, still picking up the pieces. A convoy of trucks is heading to a bomb explosion site. At one point, the men on the trucks get off. They stop all other vehicles to let the trucks pass first. All cars stop, except one. What follows is a massacre. The men from the trucks fire at the car. They fire at screaming civilians. One of them continues to shoot despite warnings. Someone points a gun at him. That's when he stops. This is a true story. It is called the Nisour Square Massacre. 17 people were killed, 17 Iraqis. And who were the killers? Americans. Fighters who belonged to a company called Blackwater. Now they're called Academy. In 2007, they were Blackwater, a private military company in the United States. And why am I telling you their story 15 years later? Because of this, the Wagner Rebellion. Suddenly, private armies are in the news. You think private army, you think Wagner, but it wasn't the first. The United States has been using such fighters for years. Chances are you haven't heard about them because they don't make it to the headlines like Wagner does.
If work ever feels like this, you need Smartsheet, the enterprise.
But Russian or American, what do these companies do? Why do governments support them? And how did Blackwater help the US in Iraq? More importantly, why should you care? Hello and welcome. I'm Palki Sharma. And on this show, we'll try to read between the lines, the stated and the unstated, the obvious and the hidden, to bring you the full story. All of us have assumptions about war, especially about who fights a war. The men and women in uniform. In our minds, they belong to an army and hence to a country. But that's not always true. National armies often do not fight every war. So who fights them? The likes of Wagner and Blackwater. Private military companies, contracted soldiers. They don't do it out of loyalty. They do it for money. And this is not a new concept. The ancient Egyptians had them. The pharaohs employed mercenaries. There were Nubian archers, Libyan charioteers. They fought for the Egyptians. The ancient Romans and Greeks used mercenaries too. Then we had the colonial powers, the British, the French, the Dutch. They too had private armies. They used them to expand their colonies. So the practice is old, but it boomed after the Cold War. That's because countries began downsizing their armies. A lot of soldiers were jobless. So they joined private military companies, especially in the 90s. You see, states were rushing to privatize, so security too became a commodity, something you could buy or sell. Which brings us to the private military industry of today. The sector is unregulated. There are very few rules. The fighters are not considered soldiers as per international law. So what exactly are they? Ambiguous. And that's their USP. Low wages, no pensions, and no rules. They do all the dirty work. National armies are governed by laws. They face investigations and trials for war crimes. But private militaries are not bound by any of this. They give a government plausible deniability, meaning you can hire and send these fighters into a conflict zone, but you can deny responsibility for their actions, which is what the Russians tried to do in Ukraine, which is also what the Americans did in Iraq with Blackwater. This company was founded in 1997 by a former Navy SEAL, this man, Eric Prince. The headquarters were in North Carolina. And why did they call it Blackwater? It was named after the particularly dark groundwater near the headquarters. So this private military company was set up. It took part in a few conflicts here and there, but what changed its fortunes was the war in Iraq. It was the beginning of a golden era of military contracts. In August 2003, Blackwater received its first Iraq contract. It was worth $21 million, but they kept a low profile. The world learned about them only in 2004. That's when 4 of their fighters were killed in Iraq, but the company kept growing. By 2008, Blackwater was training some 40,000 people every year. Its fighters were all over the world, but mostly in Iraq. Now, you may have seen countless movies on the Iraq War. They usually come from Hollywood, and they glorify the role of the US Army. But they don't talk about private armies. And we can tell you, Iraq was full of them. By 2007, there were 100,000 such fighters in Iraq. Most of them were Blackwater fighters. They were on a $1 billion contract to protect American diplomats. In fact, one estimate says there were more than 160,000 private fighters, which is roughly equal to the total number of US troops in Iraq. But this story is not just about the numbers, it's also about the role they played. Blackwater was doing everything for the Americans, guarding facilities, protecting high-value individuals, training the military, and carrying out critical operations. This was Washington's Dirty Works Department. They were involved in multiple war crimes. I just told you about the Nisour massacre. It was just one example. How do you shoot down 17 innocent civilians because one car refuses to give you way? And what action do you face for this? Criminal prosecution of private military companies rarely happens, but in this case, there were many headlines. It roiled America and Iraq. So the men involved were charged. 4 of them were even convicted. This episode raised questions about the role of Blackwater, their legal status, their management, their oversight, and their lack of accountability. In 2007, investigators from the US State Department traveled to Iraq, and they found evidence of misconduct. Do you know what happened next? Blackwater turned on them. One of their fighters threatened to kill an investigator, a US State Department investigator, and soon these investigators were kicked out of Iraq. Why? Because Washington could not afford to upset Blackwater. That's how desperately they needed them. The Nisour massacre was heinous, but it wasn't the only one. There were rapes, murders, incidents of torture, all brushed under the rug. This is the legacy of America's private army, a story of atrocities and state complicity. Today, the world talks about the Wagner Group, the way they turned against Putin, and what their ruthless fighters are doing in the conflict zones where they operate. It's horrible, and it must be checked. But the horrors of Blackwater should not be forgotten. Neither should America's role in their rise. Between 1994 and 2007, the US invested some $300 billion in 12 private militias, $300 billion. This gave rise to the likes of Blackwater. The US kept ignoring their crimes to appease them. Those 4 guards I told you about, the ones convicted for the massacre, they were later pardoned. Former US President Donald Trump pardoned them. Eric Prince has since renamed and sold the firm. Like I said, it's now known as Academy. Now you can change the name, but how will you undo their crimes? And you can point fingers at Russia, but who will hold the US accountable for their crimes? Think about it.
All right. So that's the first video of the U.S. private military, the U.S. terrorist private military. So if Russia, the private army of Russia, America is describing her as a terrorist group, then the United States also have a terrorist army, Blackwater, and other names in a system where America protect these people. If America can say the Wagner Group in Africa, they are violating human rights. The Blackwater or the Academy Group too in Africa, sent by America, telling Africa that, oh, it is American military Folks, this is why it's good to do research. This is why sometimes to the African leaders, before, in most instances or cases, before you make a deal with America or Europe, please have people in your offices that will check them. Have people in your offices that will do research on some of these things before you even meet America or Europe. Have people in your offices that will analyze things, that will analyze some business deal with America or Europe. Because those people in your offices will go and do research and find out about some of these things. And then when you meet America, you can tell America who they are and what they are and what they are coming for and their interests. And there you can tell them, no, this is not good for us. Don't just meet with America because that's America. Don't just meet with Europe because that's Europe. Don't meet with America because America is bringing money to the table. Don't meet with Europe because Europe is bringing money to the table. In fact, what they are coming for is your resources. So in return, we have more valuable things than their paper money. If we want to have paper money, Africa too can have paper money and plus our resources. So you allow these people came on the African continent and lied to you. And they came with private army. They came with army that they used in Iraq, Baghdad, Syria, Yemen. And they kill and loot and rape people. And then they brought the same people back after they withdrew them from Iraq, from Syria, from Yemen, from Baghdad. And then they brought them to Africa. Because they could not keep these people here. Because if they keep them here, they cannot put them into the army or into the marine. So they have to find a place to send them because they will still be useful in other people's country. America is good at that. What America do not find useful here, they will find a means to use that same thing in other places so that that thing will be useful still for them. That's how America operates. If they find out that you are not useful here, they send you other places to be useful for them. And they find out that you cannot be useful for them, then the last place they put you in a jailhouse, in a cell house, they will put some kind of crime on you. Or the police will do that. They know how to do that. They will put some kind of crime on you, and before you know, you find yourself in jail. And the justice system will do by all means to find you guilty because you are not useful here, and they can't use it overseas. And they can't keep you in the society because you will cause problem. So those are the same people they sent to Africa. And you allow them, you agree to it, you sat down there, and they are there today. Do not make business deal with America if you don't have intensive research or knowledge about what deal they are coming with. Have people in your offices who can critically read, who can critically analyze things. Let's continue here with this black water. So let's see more history of this black water here. Let's see. All right.
After 9/11, business boom.
Blackwater is a sleek, glossy, fast-moving sports car in the world of private security companies.
Blackwater is one of the largest and most conspicuous security firms in Iraq, staffed largely by retired U.S. military, including former members of the Special Forces.
They started off as a training facility. They offered range space. They trained sportsmen. They sold target systems.
5 years ago, they were just about to go under. And Then this Iraq war started.
Business boomed.
Blackwater is the brainchild of camera-shy multi-millionaire Eric Prince.
Eric Prince is the son of a wealthy industrialist who made his fortune with the lighted visor for cars.
Prince himself is a former Navy SEAL.
On a carrier, he saw how peacekeeping operations were conducted. He thought he had a better idea. He could privatize some of those things. He called the company Blackwater because of the waters that ran through the creek stained with tannins. And there's also bears on the property, so he used the bear paw and the sniper scope.
Eric Prince, the owner of the company, his family has long been well connected.
They have access to a lot of Republicans that are in the Senate and House, and probably to the president.
You know, the family's kind of well known for backing kind of conservative causes.
A big Republican contributor whose company has won more than $80 million worth of contracts from the U.S. government.
We have gone beyond the legitimate use of these people to use them as stopgap measures where you get into real legal and ethical and moral questions.
Hey, all these fuckers right here.
A convoy of Blackwater vehicles passed the vehicle, and the first one kicked it off the road, and the last one, as it passed it by, shot the man in the vehicle and put 100 rounds roughly in the vehicle. It turned out the man just finished dropping off his two sons at one of our bases, Taji, because they were part of the Iraqi National Guard. So there's a certain amount of irony in that, because obviously the man was not a threat.
The contractors were not under the control of the military. They were given far greater latitude, and they were allowed to do whatever they want. Certainly that did not do much for the American image. That did not win the hearts and minds of the Islamic community.
Fucking niggers. The company says it can assemble hundreds of battle-ready men, a small private army at a moment's notice.
To have a private army, that's a frightening concept, and one that really, I hope, doesn't take hold in this country.
Are we training a group of people back here that is a black army?
Such a possibility of being so out of control with no checks and balances, there's just no limit to what could happen with that kind of organization and with the kind of training that they have.
Just taking cover, you got more coming.
Jesus Christ, if I can fucking tell you.
Dozens of families fought hard to keep Blackwater USA from building a new firing range less than 2,000 feet from their backyard.
Blackwater USA, based in Millioc, North Carolina, wants to expand.
They just built a brand new headquarters.
8,000 square feet in the original building, 64,000 square feet here.
Blackwater has recruited key individuals from the government, and now Blackwater is getting key governmental contracts. You do the math.
Certainly we've left room for growth.
Growth, because Taylor believes Blackwater has a bright future.
There's opportunities all over the world.
There shouldn't be any private armies. That's just asking for trouble.
So, quick, you heard something, right? There are opportunities all over the world. So in reality, if America is sending army to your country, it's not because they are coming to protect our people or they are coming to fight for you. They are coming for the opportunity. And what is that opportunity? What are those opportunities? Your resources, period. You heard what he said. There are opportunities all around the world.
trouble.
When we express our concern to the commissioners, then they turn around and call us unpatriotic. And we're patriotic to the core. They're not going anywhere. They've gotten too big and they basically do as they please.
Wartime demands allow them to expand. Wartime demands allow them to expand. Wartime demands allow them to expand.
All right, before we can get to the next video of this private army, now, I know, and those of you that will watch the recording, but now you know that the people America sent overseas, they are not actually the army that you think they are. They are not actually the Marine that you think they are. I have a couple of people in the Marine. When I speak to them, they are not even on a battlefield. They are assigned overseas, but not on a battlefield. Like most of they are here. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to go deep into it. But yeah, they are here around. They are not on a battlefield. Yes, America want to have Marine. Yes, America want to have Army. But they will use them when it comes to that point where a country is actually in direct conflict with America. But America is not going to use her army, the Marine, and send them overseas for resource purposes. No. And some of these retired Marine, some of these retired Army, some of them also join this private company. And America owns them as well again. So now you know now. The people you think, oh, our veteran, today Veteran Day, oh, yeah, pray for our veteran. Yes, pray for them. I mean, there are some good veterans out there, don't get me wrong. But majority of the time, you are praying for this private army. You are praying for these private army that are being paid to go loot, to go kill, to go rape, to go kill, and destabilize places. You are praying for them. And not the victim of those countries, not the victim of that continent. You are praying for these people. So now you understand, it is not one private army. There are many private army, and America uses them. They are not your veteran. Let's continue here. Let's continue to the next video.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help me produce more content like this, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought and get early access to every new episode. When you think about what defines the United States, what comes to mind? Big cars, big flags, McDonald's, probably all the stereotypical stuff, but I'd be willing to bet that for most people outside the US, one of the first things that comes to mind is our incredibly massive and powerful military, and that's no surprise. With over 600 military bases in other countries and a near constant armed occupation of various regions, it makes sense that the only experience many people have with the US is our military presence. Despite what US news sources would have you believe, our military is not a welcome sight in much of the world. Far too often, the sight of US fatigues means imminent death, often for unarmed, innocent people. But over the years, a new type of armed American has started appearing in US-occupied regions, and these people are even less accountable than the US military. In this episode, we're going to talk about private military companies, the recent Blackwater pardons, and how these mercenary groups fit into the US imperialist framework. We all have a good sense of what the US military looks like. With a larger budget than the next 10 nations combined, we have more planes, ships, helicopters, and armored vehicles than we know what to do with. But what exactly is a private military company? These companies, PMCs for short, are private companies providing armed combat or security services for financial gain. The operatives, known as contractors, who are employed by these companies are often hired as protection for notable figures, armed security for U.S. corporations in unreceptive regions, and for covert missions at the behest of the U.S. government. Of course, contractors who use military force in a war zone are considered unlawful combatants by the Geneva Convention. But, as you can imagine, we tend to ignore the rules that the rest of the world has to follow. US PMCs have operated in over 50 countries and on every continent except Antarctica. Back in the 90s, there used to be 50 military personnel for every one private contractor. Today, the ratio is 10 to 1. Considering the US is home to over 1.3 million active duty personnel, that means there are somewhere around 130,000 armed Americans committing acts of violence in regions around the world at the direction of US corporations, wealthy individuals, and intelligence groups. We'll get to the significance of this fact a bit later. But first, let's consider the recent presidential pardon of 4 Blackwater contractors for crimes they committed during the US occupation of Iraq. Blackwater, now known as Academy, was founded in 1997 by former Navy SEAL Eric Prince, who is, coincidentally, the brother of Trump's Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Blackwater started out as a shooting range and training facility for the armed services, police, and security personnel, but after the invasion of Iraq became an active and lucrative private military company. Since 2003, the company has received billions of dollars in contracts from the US State Department, the military, and the CIA for work they've done in Iraq and Afghanistan, which has run the gamut from protecting various dignitaries to securing oil fields to mercenary violence. But what really put Blackwater on the average American's radar is the atrocity committed by 4 of their contractors in September of 2007.
I was on a bus when the shooting started. Heavy fire came towards us. I felt the first bullet hit my leg as I scrambled off. I kept running towards the bus station, then I got hit again. When I stopped, I was hit a third time. I felt like the bones in my leg had exploded. I fell down and started to crawl. There was utter chaos. People were terrified, trying to save themselves.
This video was filmed after the attack. 14 Iraqis, including 2 children, were killed and at least 20 others injured when a heavily armed convoy of contractors with the American security company Blackwater opened fire at a busy intersection in the capital, Baghdad.
Just before noon on September 16, 2007, a team of Blackwater contractors operating under the call sign Raven 23 opened fire in a traffic circle in Baghdad. According to their official statement, their vehicles had taken fire and one of them had been disabled, at which point the Blackwater operatives started shooting at everyone around them. Eyewitness accounts and a U.S. court of law determined this to be a lie. The contractors murdered 17 people that day and wounded 20 more. 14 civilians died on the scene, 2 of whom were young children, just 9 and 11 years old. According to people in the square that day, and to later evidence compiled by the FBI, the Americans had not been provoked, and had simply decided to kill innocent civilians. One military officer commented on the massacre, saying, "It was obviously excessive. The civilians that were fired upon, they didn't have any weapons to fire back at them, and none of the Iraqi police or any of the local security forces fired back at them." Despite all this, the men continued to shoot, including at cars that were turning to get away. Even though the evidence of this heinous crime was apparent from the beginning, it took years for the murderers to be convicted. In October of 2014, over 7 years after the massacre, 4 men were finally prosecuted for their actions. Nick Slatton, the sniper who first opened fire, was sentenced to life in prison, while 3 other men, Dustin Hurd, Evan Liberty, and Paul Slough, received 30 years, later reduced to 12 to 15 years each. Then, on December 22, 2020, President Trump granted a full pardon to each of the 4 men, citing, quote, "a long history of service to the nation." The response among the victims' families and the general public has been rightly critical.
When I heard about Trump's decision, I was shocked and disappointed. We are the victims and those men are the murderers. I thought the U.S. justice system was independent, but it seems justice is affected by U.S. politics.
The Iraqi Foreign Ministry quickly reacting, saying the president's pardons ignored the dignity of the victims and the feelings and rights of their families. Many Iraqis have long felt the incident showed Americans did not value Iraqi lives.
At least 14 civilians lost their lives that day. The youngest, 9-year-old Ali, shot in the head in the back seat of the car as his father helplessly watched him die. My son was the heart of our family, Muhammad Abdul Razak says. Another person who we spoke to was pleading with President Trump to not release these men, to not allow them to go free, because he said they were the ones who were terrorists. There's a lot of shock today in Iraq, and in fact, beyond, because of what has just taken place. A lot of, as you heard in Barbara's package there, people being reminded of something that they have felt for a very, very long time. And that is that Americans, they really just don't value Iraqi life.
Then, of course, you've got Fox News, giving full-throated support to the pardons.
What the president did for those Blackwater contractors, it's been described as a massacre. What it was is the fog of a moment where they were doing their job to protect State Department employees in one of the most dangerous parts of Baghdad at one of the most dangerous moments. A lot of the evidence totally mischaracterized, mishandled by Iraqis, many of which had ties to insurgents. They were tried in a civilian court, which has no connection to what it's like to be in that war. They volunteered to be there. And a huge credit to the commander-in-chief, who there's no upside to a call like this other than...
Sorry, folks. So do you see how they make the American or citizens or people in America to feel that these army are actually army or people that went to fight for America? So you heard what he said. They didn't have to be there, but they went there to fight for American. So they make people to think that these are actually Marine or these are actually United States Army. But not knowing these are private army that are being paid with taxpayer money. Well, taxpayers in America are homeless. Taxpayers in America are being taken out of their home if they are late on their payment or on their mortgage, or if they can't afford. They take them out of their homes and they get on the street and be homeless. But yet then, their taxpayer money that should have been used to help them, to accommodate them, they take that money and give it to private army and then lie to the American public that these people are sent overseas to fight for you, to die for you, to protect you. So you heard, he shouldn't have been there anyway, but he was there to fight for Americans. That's how the government lied. And that's how Americans have been lied to. You are being misled because most of you Americans too are lazy in reading. You only get your information from the TV, and they will use the TV to indoctrinate your mind because you are lazy in reading. You believe what the media say. You believe in what they bring to you. In Africa, we say mumu. You are mumu.
Sending a signal to our warfighters, whether you're a contractor or in uniform, we're going to have your back when you make tough calls on the battlefield, much like some of the pardons he gave for other members of the military before. So kudos, from my perspective, to the president for doing what he did for those Blackwater.
I don't know, Pete. Maybe these guys were charged in a civilian court because they're civilians. They're not military personnel. They're cosplaying as special forces while getting to operate completely outside the regulations of the military. Of course, we can all expect this kind of behavior from Fox News. But what's more disappointing is the reaction to the pardon by the pastor of one of the Blackwater thugs.
That's the kind of stuff that sweet Christmas movies are made of.
Honey, he's been pardoned. Free pardon. Totally full pardon.
So did you see how heartless? Did you see how heartless these people are? A pastor. That is a pastor sitting there, happy, rejoicing that this man is free. Telling the American public that, yeah, that's how movies are being made. Go and kill people, rape them, torture them, and then we make movie out of it, how they are being tortured and raped.
He's home.
Just a sense of joy of knowing that the children are going to be with their dad.
The complete lack of recognition of the cruelty of this statement is shocking. The kids will have their dad back. Imagine the families of the victims hearing that and seeing that footage, knowing they will never get their loved ones back specifically because of this man.
He thought everybody was okay, that they had lived through a miracle. When one of the cousins in the back seat said that Ali was hurt. Mohammed got out of the car, opened the door, went to the back seat, saw blood on the inside of the window, and Ali slumped over against the glass. He opened the door, and this is a bit graphic, but what happened was Ali slumped towards Mohammed. His skull was open, and a portion of his brain fell out onto the pavement in the Source Square.
Forgiveness is admirable, but that's not what this is. This is blind support of US brutality, and it's wrong. So yes, what the president did was reprehensible. These 4 people massacred innocent men, women, and children, and will now walk away scot-free. But here's the thing. Trump is just a convenient scapegoat in this situation. Take CNN, for example. They jumped at the chance to slam Trump for his pardons, as was justified. But they're also counting on the fact that we've forgotten that they were some of the loudest proponents of the war in Iraq. Their fear-mongering, and that of the other big networks, played a major role in allowing atrocities like the Blackwater massacre to happen. The media's job is to manufacture consent for the country's need to be constantly embroiled in low-level wars. The US needs enemies to justify our absurd military spending, including the hundreds of billions of dollars we spend on PMCs. And they won't have that justification unless we have a population of people force-fed pro-war news 24 hours a day on every major network.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major update.
After the Second World War, news coverage of the Soviet Union immediately became hostile. Everything they did was considered a threat to the American way of life. Our only goal became beating the dirty communists. That Red Scare propaganda has seeped so deeply into our national consciousness that it's still a problem to this day. But that's a topic for another video. Fast forward to the fall of the Soviet Union, and the US had a problem on their hands. Our big enemy had been defeated. Capitalism now reigned supreme. What happened next? We entered a decade of malaise among the general public, with the US frantically trying to get us involved in new wars to fuel the all-consuming military-industrial complex. 2001 comes along, and suddenly we've got our answer. An attack on US soil is just what the nation needed to spark the bloodlust again, and the networks ran with it. But this time they were more sophisticated. Instead of naming a single enemy, we branded this new conflict the War on Terror, so we could finish meddling in one country and say, look, there's some terror over there, and invade an entirely different country. Fast forward nearly 20 years, and here we are. A country of people who are finally fed up with war in the Middle East. It's old news. Public support for military action in the region is at record lows. But look, what's that on the horizon? It's China. They're communist. Remember the communists and how bad they are? If you turn on the TV today and watch any news coverage of China, you'll notice one thing. It's all negative. All of it. Every single action China takes is considered military posturing against the United States. Why? Because, like the Soviet Union, China represents a rising challenger to US economic domination. It has nothing to do with China threatening to go to war with us. They've made no indication that war is even remotely enticing. But that doesn't matter when we have news networks that can spin the narrative to make any country seem like an existential threat. Okay, but how does all this relate to private military companies? Well, consider how the nature of war has evolved over the decades. We've gone from massive troop deployments to remote strikes from miles away. We have less and less need for large numbers of soldiers to enforce the nation's will on other countries. The number of private contractors has increased dramatically since the 90s, and their use has skyrocketed among corporate and government entities alike. The reasoning is simple. Why rely on the official government arm of US imperialism when we can outsource our crimes against humanity to a third party, thereby granting ourselves another level of plausible deniability against all accusations? We didn't overthrow your local government and install a puppet leader, it was that PMC over there. The PMC gets shut down, the people behind the operation rebrand themselves with a new name and legal documents, and they're back in the game. As we saw with Blackwater's massacre in 2007, it's incredibly difficult to prosecute PMCs because the nature of their work is inherently secretive and conducted in other countries with very little oversight. Private military companies are nothing more than a convenient way to pursue violent imperialist goals without dirtying the hands of the US military. Money that would have been spent on the military is more and more often being diverted to fund private groups of armed thugs and murderers, often veterans of the armed services who have demonstrated a capability for incredible cruelty. This is the future of warfare, a hands-off approach from the official branches of the military with a heavy investment in more secretive, more violent, and less accountable paramilitary groups. These groups not only enable state violence, but also allow US corporations operating overseas to pursue their own violent forms of suppression of competition or resistance. So yes, you should be angry that the president pardoned war criminals instead of whistleblowers like Assange or Snowden. But realize that all of this fits the theme of American imperialism perfectly. Revealing the wrongdoing of the state is treason, but committing the very crimes that whistleblowers have revealed is service to the nation. The media gets to criticize Trump for doing a thing that is objectively bad, while downplaying their own role in facilitating our violence against these victims and millions more around the world. The pardons send a message to other PMCs that they can operate with impunity, that no matter what they do, they'll get away with it. We should expect to see a continued expansion of paramilitary action in US-occupied regions. It checks all the boxes: plausible deniability, outsourcing of labor, profitability, and a furthering of US imperialist goals. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this kind of content is
All right, so that's the end of the US private military. Now, the reason why we brought this out is because of how last week, let's say last 2 weeks, because last week we wasn't here because I wasn't feeling well, so I couldn't come out. First of all, I apologize, that's why we wasn't here last week. But the reason why we brought this out, because from time to time, the United States have branded the United States and Europe. Now, even Europe herself have her own private military too. All right. So the United States have branded the Wagner group, the Russian private military, as a terrorist group, okay, on the African continent. Because for each time the US is talking about this Russian private military group, they always focus on Africa. All right. But in the same way, the United States too is operating private military entity. All right. So all the nations around the world that America have invaded, okay, America had used her private military. America have not used the Marine or the Army. They use a private military because there's a reason. You can't go after the US. It's not the US because these military are not under the command of the US. And you cannot go after these military. First of all, they rebrand themselves. So now from the Blackwater, they gone to PMC, and they also gone to another name. They have another name there. So they keep rebranding themselves. So you can't go after the US. You can't catch them. But the US have the audacity to go against other, how they call it, military. And this is why we're revolutionary. The fact that the United States is against the Russian private military is not because those Russian private military are doing the wrong thing, but because America is not a nation that can compete. Europe is not a nation that can compete. And that will make this clear. The reason why they can compete is because their nation, their economy, their power were never built on competition. It was built on bloodshed. It was built on looting. It was built on rape. It was built on lies. It was built on oppressing other people. It was built on taking advantage of other people. So they were never built to compete. They were never built to dialogue. They were never built for fair share. So that is why in this 2023, if you see Africa is turning her attention to other nations who want a fair share, to other nations who want a dialogue, to other nations who want to compete on a plain equal level, America go against those people and run propaganda because they are making things difficult for America, because America does not know how to compete. America does not know how to dialogue. And that is a fact. And that is why for each time, America will always go against other leaders who are not in their interest and say that person is not democratic. And by the way, we're going to be speaking about the Niger issue this coming Sunday. I got some story. I'm putting it together. Why it happened. We're going to be speaking about it. Now, so the US and Europe, they are not nations that can compete. So that is why they are finding it difficult. That is why they are finding it hard. Because they don't know how to dialogue. It is in them to either take advantage of you if they can't take it from you. They lie. They use their media, they lie. And now because their lies are not succeeding, okay, and they are to a point where it's difficult for them to take advantage of people. That is why when you say no to them, they sanction you. And now people have come to recognize them. People have come to see their games. So people don't, nations no longer have time for American sanction. Hey, you can put sanction because after all, we have lived with it. So it is part of us. So we don't care whether you sanction or you don't sanction us. So it has reached to a point, nations don't care anymore. Even if you sanction them, they don't care. A nation that have lived for 20, 30 plus years under American sanction. Do you think they care again for America? Do you think they care? Nation, continent that have lived for over 100 years with American and British imperialism oppression. Do you think they care if you put sanction on them? Because it's even worse than sanction living on an oppressed, how they call it, oppressed system. It's the same thing. So by you putting sanction on it, it means nothing. They are already immune to it. So that is why no one care against America, no one care about your threat, and no one care about your sanction. Because people are saying they already know the game. Enough is enough. Because you are not a nation that can dialogue. You are not a nation that can compete. Even though you ride on a fake pretext of capitalism is a system where everybody competes. Capitalism, American capitalism, European capitalism is not a system where everyone competes. If it is a system where everyone competes, you will sit on the table and have a meaningful dialogue. You will sit on the table and have a fair share dialogue. You will sit on the table and have a 50-50 dialogue. You will not look at a nation just because they do not agree to your policy and put sanction on them. If indeed you are a nation that believe in capitalism, as you say. So people have come to realize who you are. And they care no more. And they will care no more. It is the end of your time of being out there. Somebody got to rise up. But let's continue. So we brought this out just for the world to know that as much as America is pointing on him, that is not to say we are supporting the Wagner group in Ukraine. We don't care. Because that's the same thing you have done to Africa. That's the same thing you have done to the Middle East. That's the same thing you have done to Venezuela. That's the same thing you have done to Cuba and all these places. That's the same thing you have done with your private military. So why will you be angry if people copy what you do? Why will you be angry if Russia have their own private military and they go and fight and they say they are fighting in the interest of Russia? Why are you angry? They photocopy from you. They take your idea. That's the same thing you're doing. You invade other people with a private military. And then when other people do it to protect their interests, and then you say they're violating law, they're violating human rights. Are you going to go to jail? Are you going to put Obama in jail for killing many Libyans? For destroying many Libyan life? Are you going to put Hillary Clinton and Obama in jail? When you do that, then the world will rally around you to go against Putin. When you put Tony Blair and George Bush in jail, then the world will rally around you. Trust me. The world will rally around you to go for Putin. The world will rally around you to believe you that the private military of Russia, they are terrorist group. If you can put a black water into the hedge, the PMC into the hedge, your private military in Africa, the French military in Africa supplies Sudan with ammunition to the extent that African military got them. If you do that and put them to the hedge, then we will support you to go after other people who are doing the same thing. But until then, sit in your corner. Let's get to Liberia. Folks, there was some time, again, the same United States. When Liberia first had an election in 2017 to 2018, the current president of Liberia, President George Manneh Weah, when he was inaugurated in 2018, when he was, sorry folks, there was a call coming. When he was inaugurated in 2018, I will say this. This man, he's not a typical Western educated person. Let me put it that way. He's not a typical Western educated person or American educated personnel. I will put it that way. He is a man of his people. Now, I'm not saying everything is bread and butter in Liberia under his regime. No. First of all, Liberia is 176 years old. We just celebrated the 76 years old, the 176 years old on the 26th of this month. July 26th made Liberia 176. Okay? So, when this man became president, it was very difficult for America to control this man because this man have different perspective based on his background, based on how he grew up, based on how he to the play he was able to manage to get as a soccer player. Okay, how he mingle. So his perspective was different, or is different. He had a mindset as the common people. He's not a kind of man who you think when he sat on a table with Barack Obama or with Joe Biden, then he feel like, yes, yeah, myself, I'm on top. That's not the kind of man. So it was very hard to control him. He was doing things according to what he think is best for Liberia. He was going around people. He did not care whether it is American friends or not American friends, or he didn't care whether Washington, D.C. have to approve those people of doing contract with Liberia. He didn't care. He cared because he felt it was in the interest, or it is in the interest of Liberia that will bring some release or relief to Liberia. That will bring some face lift to Liberia. And I think that's the best thing. You don't have to wait for Washington, D.C. to come and tell you who to partner with, who to sign treaty with, who to be friend with before you can do business with that person. Too far, too long. That has been going on for 170 years. What can we see in Liberia being controlled by the United States? Let's continue here first. So a few months ago, there was an article that came out that says the United States Treasury sanctioned 3 government officials, and we spoke about it before, right? Now, I am bringing it back again for a reason. So let me bring that article back just to refresh your memory, right? And then we go to a video and we close it for a day. Now, this is the article right here. U.S. Department of Treasury is still on their website, right? The information is still there. They have, even though they apologize Okay, shamelessly. Shame got them to apologize, but they still have it there. And now, let me make this clear. They apologize not because they wanted to. They apologize because there are some meaningful Liberians out there who put their life on the line and didn't care to speak the truth in America's face. There are some meaningful Liberians out there who are making things difficult and not easy for America. 170 years, America have controlled our governmental system. They put people into power who they want to put in. 170 years from 1822 or from 1847. If I want to take it for 176 years, I will take it from 1847. But I go back down the line from 1822. And that is why for some of us, we can look in the U.S. face and argue and tell them you never created Liberia as a place to send free slaves. We can tell them in their faces, you never created Liberia because of love of liberty. We can tell them in their faces, Liberia was not a place that you created so that free American slaves can go there or free African can go there. That was not the plan. After all, when you sit down in Washington, D.C. for 3 and 6 months to debate, the so-called ACS that they used, the ACS was never in the picture. And we know what when the ACS came into being and why they named the ACS. We know the history now. But we still have some Liberian slaves who still want to go by the narrative of the U.S. because they want to be under the command of the U.S. That is not a bad thing to partner with the U.S. We want to partner with anybody. But let us be just in our history. Let us be just in our partnership. And this new generation of Liberian, we will not bow down to America. We have bowed down for so long. And we are waking up now. You Liberian want to be slaves, so be it, be slave. But we will not give you the chance. Now, it said the Treasury sanctioned senior Liberian government official for public corruption. Now, there are some Liberians in Africa, in Liberia, or also in America here, who are still slaves to America. They were the one that put this information together and give it to the U.S. and the United States Embassy and give it to the United States Treasury. Because it was in the interest of the U.S. to tarnish this government so that this government can go out, so that the people, the citizens can go against this government and take the government out, and then they bring in new people. That is what opposition always said. We will have interim government before the election. But it is because of meaningful Liberian who lost their loved one during the war, Liberian who saw their loved one being raped and their stomach being teared, Liberian who saw their loved one boom the skeletons all around the nation, Liberian who are victims or who were victims of that useless and senseless war that was fought in Liberia by American weapons, by American taxpayer money that were used to support other warring factions in Liberia. There are Liberians who are saying it will never happen again. But there are some Liberians who are still slaves and obedient to their master. They are the ones still undermining the Liberian state, the Liberian nation. And that's how the U.S. Treasury was brave enough. But today, shame on them to say they are apologizing. It is because of some meaningful Liberian who stood tall and firm and point to America and said, bring out the evidence. America could not prove that evidence. America could not bring that evidence. And the people, the opposition that gave the information to America, now they could not bring the evidence. Because that's how America from time to time, since 1847, America have used propaganda and lies to create chaos in Liberia in its interests. But this time around, they are finding it difficult. They are finding it difficult that they have to come to work with us. And I can tell you, America can lose relationship with other African nations, but not Liberia. They are not willing. And Liberia was slipping away. Liberia was slipping. And I can tell you, Liberia is still slipping. So in order to still have an attachment to Liberia, they have to come out to apologize. Oh yes, and they will work with us. We are not working with the United States, but the United States will work with us. That means you have to agree to what we say. Now what you say, we will not work with you. You will work with us. This is a different breed of generation. Let's continue here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read 3 things down here, right? Because I know we read it before. But I want to make a connection. Because I said it was opposition that gave them useless information to America. America of all America took this information and they put it on their website. But they could not prove it. They cannot prove it. Because we challenge them. And we still challenge them to prove it. Not to say we are supporting these government officials. But we are not people that America will just say something and we take it and run with it. We say, oh, the women have spoken. America has spoken. It's not going to happen. It might have happened in the past for 170 years. But not anymore. If Washington, D.C. says something about Liberia, that's fine. Help us to fight corruption. But bring the evidence. We are not going to take it just because America said there was corruption. America said it's corrupt. In fact, if you want to compare corruption, Liberia and America, America is more 10 times corrupt than Liberia. Let's continue here. So I'm just going to read somewhere down here. So there was these 3 government officials that were sanctioned, but it's something I want to read down here. What it said about the government. All right, so let's see some of the things they sanctioned the people for, right? Okay, they said Tilwell is being designated for being a foreign person who is a current government. So America is saying one of the government officials that was sanctioned, he's being referenced as a foreign person, not Liberian, but a foreign person working in the Liberian government. Another hypocrite, right? But I move on. That's not the plan one. Liberian government official who is responsible for or complicit in or has directly or indirectly engaged in corruption, including the misappropriation of state assets, the expropriation of private assets for personal gain, corruption related to government contract, or the extraction of natural resources or bribery. Now, in here, folks, what America was trying to say here, this man gave a contract where it should have been given to American contractor first. But he never did it. He gave it to another contractor. Instead of American contractor, he gave it to another contractor and left America out. That's what it's saying here. And now, when this thing came out, for some of us, we don't just run with the news. We dug, I think I have said it before here. We dug and found a story why these people, America went against them. And there was another company from Russia. It was not even a Russian company, but these were Russian, right? That went to go do business in Liberia. Now, instead of these people giving a contract to the American contractor, they gave it to the Russian contractor because They signed it, but I believe they felt that it was in the interest of Liberia if they go with the Russian contractor. And then if they go with the American contractor, it will now benefit Liberia, like the Firestone Plantation, that the lamb coal, okay, that the gold, the timber that America have controlled for 170 years. But look at Liberia, no bridges, no road, nothing. Our iron ore that have been exploited, that today America have reserve of iron ore in the world, stolen from Liberia. But look at no road, no bridges in Liberia. When you store our iron ore today, you have reserve of it. Go to Texas. Go to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Go to Chicago. Go to Ohio, Cleveland. Our iron ores are there. But go to Liberia. That motley road you will see car hitching in the mud. Dusty road. So if we find a contractor we think will benefit us, because you have been in Liberia for 170 years. But look at Liberia. So, okay. So let's see again what the United States government said, right? They were secretly form a private company. So this is the United States Treasury, right? What do Liberia have to do with America signing a contract with another company? If America came to do business with, if Liberia came to do business with America, and America did not give the contract to Liberia, but America gave it to another person, what do Liberia have to talk about it? If we want it and you give it to another person, that's fine, because you think it is in your interest to give it to that person. But listen what they say here. America said T.Y. secretly formed a private company, which through his position at the MP at the National Port Authority, he later unilaterally awarded a contract for loading and unloading cargo to the port of Bichana. The contract was awarded to the company less than a month after its funding. Tiwa and other Young's family members to confiscate their own involvement in the company while still benefiting financially from the company. This is again America. Now, folks, do you believe that America actually got this information to fight for Liberian? Or it is an information given by the opposition to America because they were not getting their will? We know how America operates. Like I said, we'll be talking about the Niger situation. We got some information. So they also said the other guy, CFA. CFA has been designated for being a foreigner, for being a foreign person who is a current government official who is responsible for or complicit in or who has directly or indirectly engaged in corruption, including the misappropriation of state assets, the expropriation of private assets for personal gain, corruption related to government contracts. So you see again another contract. Or the extraction of natural resources or bribery. You see again, 176 years, right? America have control our economic, our financial system, all right, our resources, but they depleted our nation. Now, this is not to say I am speaking for this government official, right? Now, if America want to help offer corruption, that's fine. But let her be neutral and fair here. Let her bring evidence, not because government is not doing certain things in your interest. Then you try to do something to go against them for the people, to go against that government. It will not work this time. So the same thing again, the third person, Magil. So the same thing again. Magil has been designated for being a foreign person. So all three people, they are now Liberian. For being a foreign person who is a current government official, who is responsible for corruption, who is responsible for or complicit in or who is or who has directly or indirectly engaged in corruption, including the misappropriation of state assets, expropriation of private assets for personal gain, corruption related to government contract. Again, the same charges for these 3 people. Something wrong somewhere here. Contract were not given to America. That's the fact. There's another error here. They talk about, because we're running out of time, but there's another error. They talk about how the government of Liberia is not giving opposition time to protect their democratic right in the country. But the reality here is, right, since this government came to power, there have never been one political prisoner. Unlike America, who have many political prisoners, this government have non-political prisoners. And opposition have been able to exercise their democratic right in our country. They have protests, unnecessary protests. They have caused chaos. In fact, they have said numerous times that they want to kill President Weah. In fact, they have said numerous times that they want to drag that president, just how they killed President Doe. They have said numerous times that that's how they want to kill President Weah. President Weah did not go after them. There are government officials who said, in fact, they will stone the president. When they see him, they will stone him to death. None of those people are in prison. They are staying in the country free. But when they wrote things and they gave it to the United States Treasury, and then when they put on their website. So let's see something here. Maybe I've seen it here. They said, this designated reframe the committee of the United States to hold corrupt actors accountable. The United States is a proud and dedicated partner and friend of Liberia, biased, and stand with the people of Liberia in support of democracy. If things are not going in the interest or name or will of America, then America will come to fight for democracy and a rule of law, and will continue to promote accountability for corruption, for corrupt actors, regardless of their position or political affiliation. The United States is also committed to working with the people and government of Liberia to alleviate continuing corruption. The country is 176 years old. The country was 170 years old before this government came in. Since when have America ever fought for corruption in our country? But these are the things they say. And like I said, somewhere down, the article is long, but somewhere down, they say how the government is not giving opposition the chance, right, to practice democracy or to do their will. But I will just take it out. But let's get to the video where the ambassador of Liberia, American ambassador in Liberia, confessed and apologized to Liberian. All right? Now, before I even go into it, when the article came out by the Treasury Department, another biased entity of America, okay, when they came out with this report, there were some Liberians who are still slaves, who think like slaves, took this information all on their media. Every media, they talk about it. How the government is this. Oh, they did this, that. They did this, that. But now, the same United States government, the same U.S. ambassador, okay, ambassador in Liberia, came out to apologize to Liberian. These so-called slaves never came out to talk about it, to say we were wrong. We were all on social media here saying all kind of things. But now America apologized. We ourselves, we apologize to the Liberian that we offended. The slave, we still have slaves in Liberia. And some of these slaves are still in America as well, fighting for their slave master. Slave! And we will not give chance to those slaves. Those who want to be slaves, we will not give them chance. It is not our fault that they still want to be slave. They should go ask Harriet Tubman what she said. If only they knew they were slaves, I could have freed more of them. I could have freed thousands of them. I think they should go let Harriet Tubman tell them something. Do not have a slave mindset. Because if you have a slave mindset, you will not be free. I will not free you. Harriet Tubman is telling them, if you still have a slave mindset, you will not be free. And don't come to me. Don't call my name. Don't say I am part of your ancestor. Because your ancestor, your forefather, did not have that kind of mindset. And we have most of them, they are still slaves. All right, so let's see the video. This is the ambassador, the United States ambassador to Liberia. And by the way, his tenure is over. He's not coming back to his wife after he tried to cause chaos. And this was the same ambassador that was in Sudan, South Sudan. They play the war is today. This was the same ambassador. The moment he left, chaos started in South Sudan. The moment he lost South Sudan, chaos started there. And they sent him to Liberia to come and start another one. But hey, boy, you can fool some of the Africans, but you can't fool all the Africans all the time. You can fool some of the Africans some of the time, but you cannot fool all the Africans all the time. So, before we get into the video, right? The article I just read, that's number one, what the United States Treasury Department lied. The United States lied to create chaos in Liberia. In our era, in our aspect, the United States is a liar. And their ambassador is also a liar because he also lied and he came to apologize. In one of his counter tour that he did, folks, on a counter tour, this man named McCarthy, on a counter tour, he got misleading information. He just met random people on the street. And men like they of his caliber, men of his caliber, his status, his level of education, of knowledge, you wouldn't expect this man to go ask common people who have nothing, no knowledge about government, who have no knowledge about the finance minister or the finance ministry, nothing, who have no knowledge about the health ministry. But this man, this idiot, went and asked somebody, random person in the village, in the village. Now, I am not looking down on those people in the village. No. But he should have known better. He went and asked a random person in the village about budgetary, about budget spent on hospital, about money spent on hospital, about money spent on project. And he came and sat on air and gave those information how the government is corrupt, how things are not being done in hospital, how this, and telling Liberian people who they should vote for. This man, this idiot, was telling Liberian people who Liberian people should vote for. Liberian people should move George Weah from power. This idiots putting his affair into the Liberian politics, into the Liberian election. Can you see, or will you see the Liberian ambassador to the US doing that nonsense? You will tell him someone to be out. But again, we spoke about it. We never gave this idiot chance. And we challenge him to go to the how they call it, to the finance minister or minister to get the information. And that's how he was able to go get it, because we put him to the fire. We made Liberia small, even though Liberia is a small country, but we make it small for him. We challenge him. And that's how today he sat down here to apologize. Let's watch it.
before I depart. I would like to so thank you for joining our final press roundtable with me before I depart. I would like to start by correcting two statements that I previously made. First, the use of the word nonsense during the last press conference without fully appreciating how the word is viewed in Liberia. And frankly, thank you to some of you tried to stop me. Some of you were saying, whoa.
Sorry, folks, I have to come by. Now, he knew exactly what he wanted to do because they don't value black people. They don't value black people's opinion. They see us as inferior while they are the superior. He prepared a speech to use it and he used nonsense. So he was referring to Liberia as nonsense. And they told him, do not use our word here. In their society, in America, it may be commonly used, but this is a different society. You cannot use it there. That word nonsense, it means differently. It's offensive. You can't use it. And he went ahead to use it. But not only that, let's see. Because that's how they have done it. That's how even George Bush called Liberian insignificant. Liberia, he called Liberia insignificant. So it's nothing to them. But now it's something to them. You will not use it. And you think you will just go free. We will use any word on you as well. Words are meant to be used. If you think words are meant to be used and you use it on African people because you want to use it, oh yes. We will use our words too. And then one time can, hey, everybody can apologize, right? That's why I call you idiots. And one time can say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how the word idiot, it can be offensive. I mean, there's nothing wrong with apologizing. He apologized, right? We can apologize too. He is an idiot.
Oh, do you really want to use that word? I said, yes, of course I would. But I must say that this phrasing may even have clouded the delivery of our important message, which was, if you sign the Farmington, if the signatories sign the Farmington Declaration, they should honor their pledge and not be physically provocative or promote violence. These people need to stand by their pledge. That's what I was trying to say. So enough said on that.
Sorry, folks. And by the way, the Farmington Declaration is a declaration where all the various political parties, along with the ruling parties, get together to sign an agreement to have a peaceful dialogue of election process, as I will put it in a simple term, right? Now, that was not what he was talking about here, but he wanted to justify himself, and that's why he don't want for people to go into it. Then he said, that's what I was talking about, and fine, then we can move on now. No. But he don't want for some of those journalists in there, I'm not looking down on them, but they are cell phone journalists. They're not going to ask him the relevant or necessary question. They're not going to choke him. They're not going to ask him. But he just brushed it up. Oh, it was that Farmington Declaration I was talking about, so that I said we can move on. And no, you don't tell we can move on. We should tell you, okay, now we agree, we can move on. But don't tell now we can move on. He's still sitting there without a command, like he's commanding. But he didn't know who to do it to. You can meet me and tell me now we can move on. No, I will put you back. I will put you back. No, let me be the one to tell you now we can move on. But let's continue here.
Secondly, I discovered that I used the wrong dollar figure in my press release after my trip to the Southeast. I wrote that Parliament had spent $65 million on itself in fiscal year 2022. I'm sorry, that was the wrong figure. From the unaudited statements of consolidated.
All right. So the statement he just gave, he said he used the wrong statement, and he said he apologized. That was the wrong figure he gave. It was during the time he did a counter tour. So when he did a counter tour, like I said, Liberia is 176. But it is America that have controlled Liberia for 170 years. They did not know that in those areas were deplorable. They did not know that those counties, they were deplorable. They did not know that those counties needed development infrastructure, human capacity development. They did not know that. They did not know that hospital conditions in those areas were needed and were nothing. The people were suffering and deprived from those things. They did not know. So he went there because he wanted to. Now, I'm not saying this because maybe people will think I'm preaching for the government. I don't care. I'm not preaching for government here. I am a revolutionary here. If I see an imperialist agenda, oh, I will go against it. I will go for that imperialist agenda. And this is an imperialist, and he have an imperialist mindset or agenda. So I'm addressing him. So we revolutionary, when we are addressing it, it doesn't mean we are supporting the government. The day I come to the government, we will bash the government. But this was an imperialist agenda he was carrying. And now he said to him, oh, I use the wrong figure, this, that. If he wanted the right figure, he should have gone to the finance minister or the finance minister to get the information before coming on air. But he thought Liberian were still 60, 40, 30, I call it 160 years ago. He thought Liberians still have that kind of naive mindset. He thought Liberians were still those kind of people who were just listening to the white man when the white man speak. He thought Liberia was still those days where when America said this, then we say, yes, that's true what America said. He thought we were still in those days. But we put him to his place. That's how he went to the finance minister or minister to get the information, to get the correct figure. Because we came strongly against him, not violently, but we came strongly against him with knowledge. We came strongly against him with knowledge, and we challenged him, and we did not rest. We make the seat hard for him. That's how he went to go get the information. That's how he's here today to say, I got the right figure. Liberians are not 107. We are 170 years back. But today, in knowledge, we are not 170 years back. To challenge you, we are not 170 years back. Let's continue here.
Fund account of the calendar year 2022 released by the Ministry of Finance and Development, we can now see that the correct figure was $90.8 million for Parliament in FY22 out of a total budget of $811.6 million. So that figures out to around 11% of the national budget was spent on Parliament. Next, I would like to address the.
All right, so first of all, let's do this. Did you see the audacity? An ambassador. Now, to some of the slaves, they will agree, to something like this, right? But an ambassador had the audacity to discuss critical national issues, to discuss a budget, the Liberian budget, to Liberian people. It's like the ambassador of Liberia to America here, discussing to American, the American budget, discussing to American how Washington, D.C. has spent $6.2 billion in Ukraine just from last year to this year. The Liberian ambassador discussing to Americans that instead of that budget, that $6.2 billion being spent on American here, on homeless American, on drugs addicted American, okay, instead of that $6.2 billion being spent on your deplorable educational system, instead of that $6.2 billion being spent on your deplorable medical system, but they took it and they spent it in Ukraine for war. You think how would the United States government react to that Liberian ambassador in America here? Do you think they will take it? Do you think they will allow the Liberian ambassador in America to mingle in their national budget or how their budget are being spent? Now, this is not to say he's doing the wrong thing or he's fighting for corruption. He's not fighting for corruption. He's undermining the government. No sound Liberian who is conscious-minded will sit down and agree to what this man did or is doing. No sound conscious-minded Liberian will agree. And you think he's fighting. It may look that he's fighting adequate corruption, but he's not. He's undermining your government. Only the low-minded Liberian will think, who still think that slave, will think that this man is actually fighting for them. But in reality, he's undermining your government. You think Liberia ambassador in the US would do that nonsense he did down there? And you think that ambassador will still be in America here? You will find your 2 legs on plane straight. Back to Liberia. They were, in fact, you will be in Liberia, they start asking you questions. Are you the one to fight corruption in America? Are you the one to come tell our citizens how budget are being used? Are you the one to come tell our citizens the percentage of American budget whatsoever? Are you the one to come tell American about where American dollars should be spent? But again, when you have a kind of mindset like a slave, you will sit down and listen to your slave master. Let's continue here.
The false reports that the U.S. Embassy was $8 million. So that figures out to around 11% of the national budget was spent on Parliament. Next, I would like to address the false reports that the U.S. Embassy was asked. These are false reports saying that the U.S. Embassy was asked about nominating sanctioned individuals for office, and that the embassy replied that this was okay, this was all right. Well, the embassy is not okay with it, and we find it disappointing that political parties are nonchalant about the global Magnitsky sanctions. The U.S. Department of the Treasury spends many hours and other significant resources to research and approve sanctions on each individual. Though the embassy is separate from the Treasury Department, we fully trust and respect the validity of these designations. The fact that no Liberian government entity has even formally taken up our accusations to initiate an investigation to determine the veracity of U.S. government allegations, this is extremely disappointing and discouraging.
Okay, I love this part. Now, folks, you see how these people use words to play on our mind, right? First of all, you accuse the government. So let's put it that way, because it was 3 government officials that you sanctioned. Let's just say the United States sanction, right? Now, that play the devil advocate. You accuse the government. Why you think the government should come to you to come and question you? Take the government to court. You already accused the government. The government said, okay, fine, take me to court. Now, when you take the government to court, now you prove the evidence. Now, he said, no Liberian entity working in the government that questioned him, right? Here is the thing. We're not stupid. You are not dealing with stupid Liberian. And that is why we question the United States Department of Treasury, and we question the so-called United States ambassador in Liberia and its ambassador sitting here, McCarthy. You accuse the government, that's fine. You want for corruption in Liberia, that's fine. Help out for corruption, but be truthful, be just. So we ask you to bring the evidence. You accuse the government, and the government said bring evidence. Then you say the government did not question you? How would the government question you? The government said bring evidence. So what the government did was, there's 3 government officials, the government suspended them from their position until further investigation. Now they asked the United States Treasury to bring the evidence. But the United States Treasury could not give the government the evidence. And this is why McCarthy is frustrated, because the information the United States Department of Treasury came out with, it was not an authentic information proven by them. Because if they had the information, actually, if they had the truth, the evidence, we know America, but now that evidence could have been out. But what happened here is, because the United States Department of Treasury said that these people, opposition, that are in the government, who some of them are representatives and senators, these are the people that went and gave this report to McCarthy and gave this report to the Treasury Department. And the Treasury Department said that these were authentic information given to them, because these were people that work in the government. These are people that work in the House. These were lawmakers from the opposition that gave this information. So they felt that these were information that was true, and they can get the evidence when people call for it. But that came when they asked the Treasury Department for evidence, she can't give it. And then the same opposition could not give the evidence to the Treasury Department or to the U.S. Embassy. That is why he's saying they are disappointed, because they could not get the evidence. In fact, in most of his video, he said they invested in the media a lot, to the extent the media could not succeed in tarnishing this government. The media could not succeed bringing evidence so that they can tarnish this government and get it out. This time around, the lies, the propaganda did not hold. We questioned them. In fact, we went on air, we spoke on various platforms. That's how McCarthy, this idiots, yes, what are meant to be used. And he used it on us, and now he's apologizing. We will use it on him, and when time comes, we will say we apologize. This idiots called McCarthy. After we choke him, we asked him, we challenged him. That's how he went to the ministry, to the finance ministry, to get the information, to get the copy. And then came sitting out there reading it. He's an idiot. When time comes, I will say, oh, I had sorry too. You said, you told Liberian nonsense, and you give me an apology. Who took it to jail? Who took it to court? He's an idiot too. I can apologize too. You take me to court, I take it to court. You insulted me too. I will insult you, because you think insulting Liberian is common. So insulting you is common. Take me to court, I take it to court. Come for me, I will come for you. 50-50. We don't care. You are dealing with the wrong generation. Go ahead and say that and think, maybe Malcolm X is back. Maybe Dr. King is back. Oh yes, black people will die and come back. We reincarnate. You idiots. So that's how they set in apologizing, because they have no evidence. Today, they can't prove evidence. Today, opposition can't give them evidence. And that's how they got frustrated with opposition. And that's how today in Liberia, you can never hear opposition again talking about the United States Embassy. But before then, Every little thing, the U.S. Embassy. We go to the U.S. Embassy. We send report to the U.S. Embassy. We send memo to the U.S. Embassy. Every time they send a report to the U.S. Embassy. Every time they send a report to the U.S. Embassy. Every time they send a report. And it was the same time too. We ourselves were on our back. And they could not succeed. And today, in Liberia, you cannot hear opposition, U.S. Embassy, or international community into this, because we told them. You are harming yourself every time U.S. Embassy. You are harming yourself every time international community. What have international community done for Liberia? What have U.S. Embassy done for Liberia? The U.S. Embassy were in Liberia. They sat down and looked out. We fought for 14, 15 years. We killed one another. And they saw us dying while they were in the embassy, recording us. And they told us, y'all go on our side, go and kill each other. Do not come here. People that went there to be rescued because they felt out the moment they touch that embassy ground, they will be safe. But you told them, get out. People went there to be rescued, and you told them, leave. And they left in your sight. They shoot them, they kill them, they caught their toe, they raped them. What did they do? Today you want to come and sit down, you're fighting for who? That nonsense that happened in the past, that nonsense, it will not happen again. We will use it. When time comes, we will apologize too. You use words on us, we will use words on you. And when time comes, we apologize. 50-50.
That said, if the voters of Liberia wish to elevate to public office individuals who've been sanctioned, that's their prerogative. This should also prompt the listener of.
You see, even though he apologizing, right? But what he failed to understand here is that he thinks Liberians are still stupid. Yes, Liberians will vote for whosoever they want to vote for. But Mr. McCarthy, and to your U.S. government, and to your U.S. treasurer, Liberia is not 170 years back. Yes, it is 170 years back, but in terms of knowledge, we have come to realize it. No more you just come out with any statement, we agree. We will ask you to bring evidence. So yes, if Liberian people want to go and vote for Maggie and all the other government officials that were sanctioned by you, that's fine, because you failed to bring evidence. They are not guilty. In your system, you said you are not guilty of a crime until there are evidence proving that indeed you did it. So how can we say Maggie is guilty when you have not given us evidence? How can we say the other people that are guilty when you have not given us evidence? You have not even tried them. Have you put them on trial? Have you sent them to court? Have you gone to the Liberian judicial system and gave them the evidence? Have you gone, because you put a sanction on them, have you taken them to court and carried the evidence that the reason why you sanctioned them? So Liberian people are stupid and dumb. They don't know a system that no one is guilty until proven. You think we don't know? And then you come and say, if Liberian people want to go vote for this, that's fine. Stop interfering into our politics. That is not to say we are speaking for those people that were sanctioned. But the issue here is, America, if you are not biased, bring out the evidence. But until then, you are a liar. Damn liar. Bring the evidence. And you don't have the evidence. That's why I gave you the guts to come today to apologize. And then you want to put the blame on government officials that, oh, there are some government officials who have not come to question her, who have not come to do this. No. And the government officials don't want to do it. The citizens of Liberia have done it. They said, bring the evidence. Wait, you want for government official to come and tell you, bring the evidence first? You accuse the government, take the government to court, and then carry evidence. But we spoke for the government because we are patriot. Because we do not want you to bring out our own nonsense colonial attitude to come and lie to the people again, to manipulate the mind of the people. Because that's what happened. That's the same thing you did. You manipulated the mind of the people. You killed Tobo. That's what you did through lies, and you killed Tobo. That's what you did through lies, and you killed Doe. That's what you did through lies, and war went to that country, and we killed each other. Through the support of American taxpayer money, through the support of American-made weapons. You think we don't know? And we should sit down again. We don't know the story. We don't know what happened, what took place. We should sit down for you to make such allegation on the nation. And we sit down, we close our mouth. It was then, but not now.
Whoever was telling this story that we said it was all right, to question anything else that they may have said at the same time. So at this time, I would like to say that I hope you all and the Liberian public recognize my genuine care for the country and the people of this country. Even if the delivery of these messages may have been a little coarse at times or a little hard, my motivation has always been what is best for Liberia. Not to say that I know better, but that some Liberian actors know better than to do what they are doing. They know better.
So folks, you hear it. Some Liberian actors know better to do the right thing, but they are not doing the right thing, right? He's confessing right there what I just said. They were working with opposition to tarnish the government. And there are some Liberians who are in America who are still slaves. And we see them on various platforms. Since this president got inaugurated in 2018, they said they will make sure the president get one term. They said they will make sure they kill this president. They said they will make sure they drag this president on the street. They see where they drag president door on the street and kill him. That's how they were going to do the same thing. They said they will stone this president until he died. We still have slaves in Liberia. And some of them in Liberia, some of them are here in America, here. They are here. Some of them are here. We still got slave here. And we got slave there. Slave. S-L-A-V-E-S. Slave. They're in Liberia. They're there. And we have them here. We have slave. So those are the people he's talking about. Some Liberian actors. Because those are the people that the ones start getting information from. Those are the people that were carrying information to them. Lying to them. And because they feared that maybe in Liberia, the governmental system were not going in their way. They were not getting their way. They are stupid and interest and foreign policy. It was not going in their way. They found it as a means to go with this information the opposition were giving them, or some slaves were giving them. Because those slaves still think Liberia is still a plantation. Those slaves still think Liberia is still a settlers colony. Slave. Exactly. Who wrote the speech for him? He himself. Nobody wrote the speech for him. He wrote the speech and people told him, do not say it. This is a different society. And he still went and say it. And he went lying around. And now he's here telling us, oh, this and some Liberian actors, this, that. Look, if America had been getting information from some of the slaves, in order for her to get her will, hold on to you, America. Your will not be now. Because any information you bring out, we will make sure we dig behind it and find it and make sure it is a true information and tell our people. Do you think we want to see Liberians to die again? Do you think we want to see another 300,000 Liberians to die? Do you think we want to see Americans sitting there in the embassy again, looking at Liberians dying and suffering and raping each other, getting each other caught and splitting pregnant women guts? Do you think we want to see it? While you sit in your embassy and laugh at us and make video at us and make video games and send it to your children see it, do you think we want to see it? You know how we suffer? Do you know how we suffer? It's not going to happen again. Never! We will challenge anybody. We are not afraid. We are already dead. What we saw, we are already dead. What we have been through, we are already dead. So we will speak to anybody. We don't care. We are not afraid. We are willing to die anytime for our country and die for the truth. If anybody think what they did in the past, they will do it again to come back to create chaos, hold on to you, is never going to happen. You idiots.
That's my point. Not that I know better. They know better. The Liberians who work for me at the residence and at the embassy continue to be unhappy. They're now paying income tax, but they don't see where the money is going. Which brings me to something we've discussed before. Your role in following the money. Never hesitate to ask, what is happening with taxpayer funds? That's your...
Now, that's the last area I wanted to touch. He's talking about Liberia. Now, you see, sometimes, right? Folks, let us be careful here. Because sometimes not everybody that speak for you means that they are actually speaking. They might be saying the truth. They might be saying the truth, which might sound to be truth. And what he's saying down there is sound to be truth, right? But is he really speaking for you, Liberian, for us, Liberian, for us, African? Absolutely not. He's actually undermining the government. That's the reality. Yes, indeed. You need to ask the government. It is true. Because somebody may say, but is he lying? He's saying the truth that is our taxpayer money. We need to ask the government. Yes. You need to ask the government. That's your taxpayer money. That's your money. You need to ask the government where it is being spent, how it is being spent. But the reality here is, we live in America here now, though. How often have America ever tell her citizens, her taxpayer, not even citizen, but her taxpayer, how taxpayer money are being spent? Do you know people in America, how they have complained asking the government about where their taxpayer money are going, where their taxes are going, or how it is being spent? Have America ever come together in a report? The billions of dollars of taxpayer money being spent in Ukraine. The billions of dollars of taxpayer money being spent in Taiwan. The United States has just passed another budget, $345 million, in terms of supply of ammunition that have been sent to Taiwan, to buy weapons to send to Taiwan. Have they come out to tell the American people that it is your taxpayer money and that's why we're using it? Therefore, the reason why we're using it, we're sending it there. Have they come out? Things you can't do in your country, that you want to go to in other people's country to create chaos. It is their taxpayer. And it sounds true, but are they doing the same thing here? Have they ever been truthful to tell taxpayer where their taxpayer money are going? Have they ever been truthful? Oh, yes. American taxpayer money just left the Treasury Department. 300, that's a $3.2 billion in June. That's a July that got missing. $3.2 billion got missing from the Treasury Department. Did America ever tell her citizens about that taxpayer money, about that money, how it got missing, where it went? Did they explain to them? Did they tell the American people that it is your taxpayer money, it got missing, and we will pay back? Did they tell them? Why you think, what don't work in your country? You want to go in other country to go tell them it is your taxpayer money? You got it right to go ask them, and then mumu idiots. You know, Chris, are you truthful? You want to talk about corruption? America is the #1 corrupt country in the world. But they are just sophisticated. They are very sophisticated in what they do. But indeed, they are corrupt. Poor people pay taxes. Rich people don't pay taxes. That's corruption. We can go in and dive into it. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, comrade, thank you for being on. That is today's message. I will see you Sunday. We might be talking about the Niger issue. I have been following the story. I have getting a lot of information. I'm still putting the puzzle together. All right. So hopefully by Sunday, hopefully from now to Wednesday, I might get all the information. But if I can't get everything that I need, then we'll have to postpone it to the following Sunday. But I'm hoping to get everything. I have gotten some. All right. I'm hoping to get everything, and we're going to dive into it and see why in the first place that could happen. Okay. I already know some of the reason why it happened. I already get some, but I want to get the full story, everything together and thing, and let me put a puzzle together. I'm still fighting putting it together, but I'm hoping we will talk about our cool issue this coming Sunday along with other topic. Even the breaks, I'm still following the breaks. Okay, the breaks summit they just had in South Africa, the 2-day, in Russia. I'm still following it. I mean, it's finished, but I'm trying to put pieces together. I'm still putting the pieces together. So hopefully, that be put together. But we're going to talk about, I'm hoping that we'll talk about a coup that just took place in Niger. The reason why. This is WCC. We want to see who behind it, if there is any entity and the reason to why it happened. That's what we want to see. We all want to see the reason and the solution. So this is WCC. By Sunday, we're going to get into it. We're going to bring that story. We're going to follow that story and keep following it. Okay. So this is today's topic that I promise you that I want to bring. So before we leave, let me just play a video here from one of our youth from our Break Summit. Let me see. Okay, and then from there, it's just going to play and then we can go. But this is today's discussion and thing. But I'll just listen to this video and then as we call it for a day.
I mean, not bad. I'm joined by the Ugandan Youth Member of Parliament, Edson Rugumayo, who's joining us here on RT International. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Rory, for having me here.
What do you think off the top of your head? I mean, not bad.
I think this place here is very much enjoyable, and most of the African delegates, we are very enthusiastic about what is taking place today here.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting. There is a lot of hope that is growing amidst us that actually the African-Russian cooperation would be the best forever and for a long time to come. Rory, let's take this anecdote. Being in Africa, how does it feel? African states generally are the youngest states in the world. Most of them averagely around 60 years and not more, 60 years. And being in Africa feels like a student who lately reported to college and having to be bullied by the big boys who have been there. Most of these states of the West are 200 years and more. And then,
but sorry, the bullies, who are the bullies?
The Western states are 200 years and more. And Africa only has to look back. And when it looks back, it only sees the only possible defender is Russia. Russia is the one who can stand in front of this and say, hey, no, please don't do this. Don't threaten, don't do this. So Africa looks at Russia as the possible defender. That is why this Russia-Africa summit is very important for African leaders.
But listen, I mean, obviously, you're absolutely right, Edson. It's very important, but it's also, should we say, ruffling some feathers with some professional partners in Europe or all the way across the Atlantic as well. We're talking about what has been the established hegemon now for a long, long time. And as many analysts say, the global power mechanisms are shifting in the world. And as you say, the younger countries, they're developing and they're looking to the future. And Edson, you know, what you said a moment ago was almost, there's something in the air here. There is a feeling, there's an energy, there's an optimism. You could, it's almost tangible, isn't it?
Roy, I can tell you, coming from Africa, you very much appreciate the role Russia has played. One is supporting most of the states to strengthen them, to make sure that they can have continued stability. That is very important. Today, the African leaders are here. We are all here to say first, thank you, Russia, for helping our states become strong enough to make sure we have stability in our countries. But also because of the stability as a result of this support, most of the African leaders are enthusiastic to see how deep can we go with cooperation to make sure our people can have gainful employment, how can our people ensure food security, how can we ensure that is transfer of technology from Russia because we find Russia as the most reliable partner and one that we can depend on for these deep
Edson,
things.
you say that, but any of our colleagues in Washington or in Brussels or London, they're going to hear you say that and they're going to say, oh, this guy's on RT, he's talking propaganda, RT must have paid him to say this. But I mean, honestly.
It's because they won't understand the needs of Africa. They won't understand the needs of a young person growing in Africa. The need of a young person now growing in Africa is to know that they will run to a certain country, get a skill, get a technology that they can use, but they don't want to hear about a country that has to pull ropes on the country because they're probably much more indebted to them and they're enslaved to that country.
Yeah.
The hope of Africa comes from a reliable partner who will not come in to ensnare me, to get into debt and then later crush me or topple the government because they can't pay back the debt. That's the different part that they don't understand about Africa.
You raise a very good point, and I've been eager to talk about this with you. I've actually been waiting for you to show up today. I know you've been busy schmoozing, but Edson, look, okay, there's a story out there. It's been around for about 4 months now. Now the story is that Uganda has discovered the world's biggest gold deposit on its territory. Now, the rumors I've read say it's worth between 12 and 13 trillion dollars, which some say is actually more than the amount of US dollars in cash in circulation around the world. Do you know this story?
Well, I have heard and I've learned on several occasions that Uganda has one of the biggest gold deposits in the world. And for that is great hope for the Ugandans themselves. We are very much happy about that. But we also know what that comes with.
Comes with a burden. What does it come with? Tell me.
It comes with a big burden of how do you negotiate through to make sure that the people benefit from such gold deposits. It becomes tricky, and then sometimes it's a great burden for the leadership of the country in deciding who should take a stake in this, who should take more. Because in the end, if you do not adhere to this and say maybe a certain eastern country in the eastern side takes more of the deposit, you'll expect issues to do with human rights,
you talk about China,
democracy.
Edson, you talk about China, mate, because I mean, China's got a lot of contracts in Uganda, infrastructure contracts, roads and electricity wires and this, that, and the other. But is it possible? I mean, I guess I shouldn't ask this, but I'm going to ask this. Who is going to have access to what is supposed to be, allegedly, the biggest gold mine in the world in Uganda?
Well, I think the leadership of the country, the presidency, the executive, must be underway in the process of negotiating who should take the stock in this, who should take the biggest percentage of this, who should access it, who should mine it. But I also appreciated one thing that the President Putin made in his speech today, that they are going to be focusing on advancing technical skills to Africans through vocational training to make sure Africans have the knowledge on how to access their own resources. And that was a very important point. And I felt it sinking that this is genuine. This is a very genuine thing.
It's about, Putin's talked about it. Other African heads of state have talked about sovereignty. We want to be sovereign, and we also want to work with other countries on a mutual level of respect. It should be respectful, mutually advantageous trade that's going on between the two countries. Edson Rugumayo joining us here on RT International. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you about this. And also the gold deposit, because if it is confirmed that Uganda has discovered the biggest gold deposit in the world, mark my words, my friend, it won't be long until America and London start saying there are human rights abuses in Uganda because, the government is kind of anti-LGBTQ, right? right?
We aware. They will try to bring that up.
Yeah. So now you've got social rights in Uganda. So all I'm saying is, mate, when certain professional partners see a big gold mine, they're going to be looking to get in there, you know? So Edson, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. Stay with me for now, and we'll talk to you in just a moment, all right?
Yes, Nkrumah, that is why like I'm trying to put the information together. So Nkrumah is saying no, that's not the question. Okay, so there's the question. Anyone know what the agenda point of the summit is? At the end of the interview where the young man was saying, what Putin said, that they in a simple way, they are going to train African, for African to have their own way of processing. I'm just going to paraphrase it, their own way of processing their natural resources, right? And making decisions and all of those things. I think in a nutshell, that's what the summit is actually about, which is different from the colonizer summit, where they would just tell African, we need your resources, we're going to give you money, and then we'll send people to come and exploit your resources and then bring it to America and Europe, and then we can do it into finished product, and then we can send some finished product to your continent, so that if your people can afford to get it, fine. If they can't afford, then fine. That's just a different. I think with this summit, with the US-Africa summit, or let's say the BRICS or the Russia-Africa summit, it's actually about mutual cooperation. Okay, well, Russia will benefit, Africa benefit. Russia will bring her technology. Okay, Russia will bring her equipment and train Africans, and at the same time too, Russia will get from African, what African can give to Russia. So it's going to be mutual. It's going to be agreement where Russia will bring her, Africa bring her, and then they meet at a critical point and they decide, they look into it and to see which one can benefit Africa and which one can benefit Russia. Unlike America and Europe, they're not coming with agenda. They are not coming with agenda to help African, but they are coming with an agenda to take African government out of power. Okay, they are coming with their foreign policy. Okay, if you don't agree with all, we put sanction on you. That is not what Russia is for. Hey, if they can't agree, if Africa do not agree to Russia interest, Russia is not going to put policy or interest, I call it sanction on African nation, or China is not going to put sanction on African nation. It just means Russia need to come up with a different, a plan to see what can be best for Africa and what can be best for Russia. So that's the reason why some of these summits, were held. Like, listen, we want to help you African to empower yourself. Them coming and begging America all the time for resources, or begging America all the time for cash. Okay, so we in China, along with other people, we're going to help you. If you have become superpower, yes, become superpower. Okay, we are not there, to go against you becoming superpower. No, we are there for you to make decisions based on your people, based on the interests of your people. I think that's what some of these summits were here for. So it was not where Russia will tell African, this is what you need to do, this is what good for you. No, at the end of the day, Russia know that she needs something for Africa, and Africa needs something from her. Because in a Joe Biden video, the video last 2 weeks we played in that video, you know what Joe Biden said? Joe Biden said, any nation that does not agree to their foreign policy, they will never enjoy U.S. technology. He said it in that video. That's what Joe Biden said. As long as you do not agree to the U.S. foreign policy, you will have no access to their technology. So that's the difference between the Russia and Africa summit. That's the difference. Okay, so Russia is not going to say, if any African nation that do not agree to what I want to say, you are not going to have an access to my technology, to our technology. No, that's not what Russia is saying. But that's what Joe Biden, in his statement, that's what he said. As long as a nation do not agree to U.S. foreign policy, you will not have U.S. interest and you will not have U.S. Technology. They won't do it. They won't give it to you. And that's an oppressive system, colonial system, imperialist system. And that's why people think, or the U.S. think, other nation, particularly African nation, hate her. No, it's just because your policy is not fruitful for Africans. That's all. But again, I'm still following the story, even though the summit is finished. But I'm looking at different aspects to see what it was for. But yet, in a nutshell, that's what actually this policy was for. For African nations to work with China, to work with how they call it, Russia, to see how Africa can build. It was also about, look, Africa can never build as long she's still being partnered with the colonial system, with the colonialists, with the enslaver, okay, with the imperialists. As long you are still making deal or partner with these people, you will not rise. You will be to where you are. So that's what some of these summits, this summit was actually for, okay? For Africa to work with people who had the interest of Africa and they all can grow together. Because one way or other, Africans are not saying, right, they want to be isolated from the rest of the world. The only reason why we're saying that is because we have worked with the imperialists from memorial time, and the imperialists don't have our interests. So if we say we don't want to work with the imperialists, we are right, because we know what we're saying. If we say we don't want to work with the US, we are right. If we say we don't want to work with Europe, we are right, because we know what we are saying. Over the course of years, decades, centuries, we have worked with them, and it have never been fruitful for us, and it always been in their interest. So if we say that we want to isolate ourselves, in our manner, we will be right. But if we find people who seek our interest, who think what we are doing is the right, and what we have, they also need some, and what they have, we need some that they can share with us, and it can make us grow. Hey, we want to make business with such people. Peace.